Welcome to the Adaptation Fund's Learning Grants Training. The aim of this course is to support strong applications for learning grants. By undertaking this training, you will learn to create robust learning activities, align learning activities with the objectives of the learning and sharing pillar under the medium-term strategy, and complete the learning grants application form. The training is comprised of 3 sections. Section 1 provides an introduction to learning and the learning grants. Section 2 provides inspiration and a case study. Section 3 provides a walkthrough of the learning grant application form. The full training takes 17 minutes to complete. You can pause at any time to apply part of the training or take a break and return at your leisure. Section 1. Introduction to Learning. What are learning grants? The learning grants are small grants of up to $500,000 to support learning activities under the medium-term strategy. These activities focus on transferring and/or developing knowledge. Knowledge can be transferred from one NIE to another, or to the wider climate adaptation community. Knowledge can be developed through partnerships where new knowledge or guidelines are created. Who can apply for a learning grant? Learning grants are available to accredited national implementing entities whose status shows as accredited. The NIE must already have an Adaptation Fund funded project under implementation or completion. The project must have reached midpoint and submitted a mid-term review or evaluation. Projects with a duration of less than 4 years must have submitted at least one project performance report reviewed and cleared by the Secretariat. The Adaptation Fund's learning approach. The Adaptation Fund was established in 2001 under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the UNFCCC, to finance concrete adaptation projects and programs in countries that are particularly vulnerable to the adverse effects of climate change. The Adaptation Fund supports knowledge management, sharing and learning through the medium-term strategy that promotes learning and sharing collaboratively across communities of practice. The strategic results framework that includes a dedicated outcome for tracking, monitoring and evaluating knowledge management. And knowledge management, the mandatory component of all projects promoting knowledge development, capture, management and sharing. The learning grants are a mechanism brought in under the medium-term strategy to facilitate South-South learning, sharing of information, lessons learnt, and best practices. By creating a learning project, your NIE will support the overarching strategy and aim of the Adaptation Fund. Learning is the acquisition of knowledge through a process of experience or being taught. Knowledge management as part of all Adaptation Fund projects is the process of ensuring that the knowledge gained in a project is captured and disseminated to reach a large number of beneficiaries as quickly as possible in the most efficient format. Learning is an active process to further develop or scale these knowledge management activities. Thus, knowledge can also influence a project by creating a learning loop to adapt a project as learning takes place. Knowledge management within Adaptation Fund funded projects begins with the knowledge gathered before and during the project proposal. It continues with the knowledge generated and adapted during the project, including each project review cycle. At the end of a project, knowledge that has been captured is made available and shared. The learning grants are an opportunity to maximize the impact of knowledge developed in the latter stages of a project. We will explore these opportunities through examples and a case study in Section 2 of the training. Learning activities with a learning grant can involve transferring knowledge between NIEs, transferring knowledge from an NIE to the wider climate adaptation community, and developing knowledge and guidelines through partnerships. All learning activities must follow the Adaptation Fund's guiding principles and be evidence-based, learning-orientated, innovative, country-owned, collaborative, inclusive, gender-responsive, and where possible, use traditional, indigenous, and/or local knowledge. Section 2. Inspiration through case studies and examples. Across the range of Adaptation Fund NIE projects, many different knowledge management activities can be seen, showcasing the varied and open nature of knowledge management and learning. Knowledge management activities can provide inspiration for learning opportunities through repackaging of knowledge into learning materials, promotion and teaching of new knowledge, scaling up of successful knowledge management activities, offering accessibility or dissemination of learning to wider or diverse audiences, creating new learning activities, or creating alternative learning experiments. Learning is an exciting opportunity to go beyond the activities of knowledge management and be creative. First, let us look at an example of learning loops. Imagine an Adaptation Fund project aimed to reduce vulnerability and increase resilience in critical sectors, including agriculture and water management. The project proposal set out a knowledge management plan with public debates, publications, conferences, and international workshops. However, during the project, the implementing entity faced the challenge that the executing entities did not have all the necessary skills to deliver the adaptation plan. To solve this challenge, they re-evaluated the knowledge management needs and changed their actions to focus on upskilling the executing entities through learning workshops and adaptation tools. In this example, the original project plans were adapted as a new learning need was uncovered. This is a learning loop. When learning loops occur between the project proposal and the project performance reviews, it can highlight opportunities for further learning development that were outside the original knowledge management plans of the project. Second, let us look at a case study of a learning grant proposed by Senegal. Senegal implemented the project Adaptation to Coastal Erosion in Vulnerable Areas between 2011 and 2015. In this time, they gained valuable knowledge and shared it by providing technical learning support to 9 other African countries. Senegal identified this experience as an opportunity to establish themselves as a centre for learning and innovation using knowledge gained in the project on coastal zone management. This is the basis for their successful learning grant proposal. The learning grant was proposed to set up an information and knowledge management system, develop tools for adaptation projects, and exchange visits with other adaptation NIEs. The Senegal Learning Grant proposal achieves the requirements for a strong learning activity. It aligns to the strategic learning results of the Adaptation Fund by supporting Expected Result 1, Lessons Learnt and Shared. Expected Results 2, Knowledge and Guidance Developed. And Expected Result 3, analytical capacity strengthened. It aligns to the activities supported under learning grants by transferring knowledge from one NIE to another, transferring knowledge from the NIE to the wider climate adaptation community, and developing knowledge and guidelines through partnerships. And it supports many of the guiding principles for learning, including being collaborative, sharing local knowledge, and innovation. Section 3. The Learning Grants Application and Procedure. How to apply for a learning grant. First, download the application form. Details can be found in the next slide. Second, complete the form and attach a letter of endorsement by the government. Third, send your application to the Adaptation Fund. Applications will be accepted on a rolling basis. Applications follow the normal project cycle submission process, including the opportunity to address comments from the Secretariat and resubmit the proposal. The Learning Grants application form is accessed on the Adaptation Fund's website. To access the Learning Grants page, select Knowledge and Learning from the menu, then select Learning Grants from the drop-down. On the Learning Grants page, you can find detailed information on the learning grants, including background, purpose, and application procedure. Scroll to the bottom of the page and find all the materials needed for an application in English, French, and Spanish. The application form includes a template for the letter of endorsement by the government. Go to the Learning Grants webpage and download the application form and guidance document. The Learning Grants application consists of 6 parts, all of which must be completed for a successful application. Part A. Project Information. Leave the first 2 fields blank for use by the assessors at the Adaptation Fund. Enter your country name, national implementing entity name, and the amount of financing you are requesting, not to exceed $500,000 US. Part B. Timeframe of activity. There is a simple table provided to fill in the predicted start and end date of your proposed learning activities. For learning grants, the date of first disbursement by the national implementing entity towards an activity related to the grant is considered the start date of the project. Part C of the application is more detailed and is split into Parts C1 and C2. Part C1 describes the purpose of your learning activities. In 100 words or less, you must outline your main objective, the benefits you will deliver, and how these benefits will reach the most vulnerable communities. For example, the Senegal Learning Grant has a main objective to establish itself as a centre for learning and innovation. It lists the benefits of this action as providing lessons learnt, partnerships, knowledge platforms, resource centres, and knowledge-sharing events. And it will support the most vulnerable communities by enabling them to adapt to coastal erosion. The proposal itself goes into more detail about who these communities are, and how they will be reached, and how they will benefit from the activities. Your proposal will also need to give an insightful level of detail. Part 2C of the application provides a detailed breakdown of your proposed learning activities. Using the table, describe each activity, naming the beneficiaries and those who will be involved in knowledge shares. Also, provide a clear budget breakdown. Complete the table by listing the proposed learning activities that make up the learning grant. Activities should be listed in a logical order according to how they will be executed. For each activity, describe in detail who it is for and how you will carry it out. Each activity will have outputs, List them here and where possible link these outputs to the strategic objectives of the Adaptation Fund through the results framework. Name all of the other parties that will share in this activity. It can be communities, institutions, or countries. Describe your requested budget for each activity. And set a completion date for each activity. Remember to create a logical flow through the table in terms of actions and completion dates. It is also important when finalizing the table to ensure that adequate resources have been added for gender-responsive actions and implementation. Where there is an implementing entity management fee, this must be clearly stated at the end of the table, at or below 8.5% of the total project or program budget before the fee. As an example, here is a small section of the Senegal Learning Grant. The first activity listed is to develop a knowledge management system. This is broken into 3 parts: the design, training, and evaluation. Each part has a deliverable and supports the expected results of the Adaptation Fund's medium-term strategy. A budget and timeline is provided. Part D is the project implementation arrangements. It is split into 4 parts. D1. Describe the arrangements for project implementation. D2. Include a simple results framework for the project proposal, including milestones, targets, and indicators. D3. Describe how the project or program aligns with the results framework of the Adaptation Fund. A table is provided to support the completion of D3. It must be completed for both the project objectives and outcomes, aligning them to the results framework outcome and output indicators. D4. Include a disbursement schedule with time-bound milestones. Parts E and F of the Learning Grants application are the attached implementing entity certification and the letter of endorsement by the government. Ensure both are properly signed and dated. This covers all 6 parts of the Learning Grants application. All learning grant proposals must be clear on the expected output from use of the grant, the goal for learning, and the rationale for the proposed learning activities. Parts C and D require the most attention and input to describe your proposed activity and should take up the majority of the application form. The other sections are short but must be completed for a full submission. Pause here to review your learning. Learning is vital to support adaptation to climate change through the transfer and development of knowledge and enabling others to acquire your knowledge. Take time to consider where there is opportunity to develop knowledge into a learning activity that can disseminate or scale your actions to support adaptation to climate change. You have now completed the training for the application to learning grants. Thank you for participating.